Okay, number 6, you have to graph by using transformations. Before we actually get to that problem, I first want to review the 4 base graphs that you're going to have to know for the test. Okay, so these are not going to be given to you. You have to know these. Okay, these are the only 4. We talked about 5 of them. We had a cube root in our original lecture we talked about, but instead of that, let's just focus on these 4. Okay, so these are the 4 you'll have to know. So the question in the test will be one of these 4 types of graphs. You have to make sure you understand how to do all 4, because any of these 4 could appear on the exam. First, we have absolute value of x. Okay, so absolute value of x, it looks like a V-shaped graph. All these are based at 0, 0, so every one of these goes through 0, 0. I didn't have them labeled, but we know they go through 0, 0. I put some extra points on here that you can see for each one. 1, 1, and negative 1, 1. Next one is the x cubed graph. Goes through 1, 1, and negative 1, negative 1, 2, 8, negative 2, negative 8. Okay, so that we have a bend in the graph there for the cube. For x squared, it's similar to the V shape, except it's shaped as a U. So we have the same 2 points here that it goes through with absolute value, but we also have these other ones, 2, 4, and negative 2, 4. The last one is the square root graph. So square root starts at 0, 0 and goes up and to the right. And here's 2 points that it goes through, 1, 1, and 4, 2 are some points that it goes through. So you want to make sure you understand the base graphs in order to do this one. Okay, so hopefully you have all this down right now. So we're going to now move on to the transformations. Okay, so I'm going to erase these. If you need them again, just rewind the video. Okay, now if you look at the test itself, the test actually is going to have different grids here because you have to do one for each different transformation. So as you go through, you're going to start with the base graph here, and then you're going to graph the transformations that follow it. The first one, we're going to draw the base graph. Now I'm going to label these each for you so you understand what they are. Now it's good practice to label these on your test as well. If you forget to label them, that's okay, but it's going to help you if you label them, because that way you know what graph that you're drawing. So here's the absolute value. That's the very first one that we had. That's our base graph. And of course I know that it goes through these points. Now you don't have to label these points on your graph itself, as long as there'll be a grid provided for you. So as long as you show it going through that particular grid and it goes to the right coordinates, that's going to be fine. But I'm going to label them here for you since I don't have a grid up here. Okay, so that's the first one. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the absolute value itself. So I'm just going to do absolute value x minus 1. That's going to move the graph one place over to the right. You're always moving it opposite direction of the sign that you have inside of the function. So for this I have negative 1. I'm going to move it one place over to the right. And so instead of having it at 0, 0, it's now going to be at 1, 0. These 2 points shift over as well. So it was at negative 1, 1. It's now going to go through here at that point. The other one is going to be here. So now I have a V-shaped graph that does this. And so I have 2, 1, and 0, 1. I have my 2 points that goes through. That's that one. Okay, now the next thing I'll do is I'm going to apply the negative sign on the outside. So I'm going to do negative absolute value x minus 1. Okay, so then what that does is it takes the graph in this position, it's going to flip it over. So it's going to flip it upside down. So the question I always get asked is, what order do you do these in? Okay, the order you do these in has to do with order of operations on these. So for instance, if I wanted to put a number in for x and calculate it, I would start by working inside the absolute value first, then I'd multiply by whatever numbers on the outside here, and then I would add 3. That's actually the same order that you can use to graph. So if you're wondering what order to do it in, just think about order of operations. That'll be an easy way for you to remember which way that you want to go with that. The same way you would calculate a number is the same way you're going to graph it. So that means that if there's something outside, I would have to do the inside one first, then apply the negative, and then I'll add 3. So I'm going to flip it over. So if I flip it over, it's now going to, instead of going through 0, 1, it's now going to go through 0, negative 1. So I have the graph is going to go like that. This point that was up here is now going to flip and be down below there. So I'm going to put it at this point. So I have it, now the graph's going to look like that. It's flipped upside down. Okay. Then finally, my last answer is going to be the one that is basically my final graph here. So I have that one plus 3. So what I'll do is this answer that I have drawn in that position, I'm now going to shift it up 3 units. Okay, so it was originally at this point. It's going to move up 3. So now that point is going to now be up here. So it was on that line. We shifted up 3. This point was at 0, -1. I'm going to add 3 to that. So I go 1, 2, 3. So it's going to go up to right here. This point, I add 1, 2, 3. It's going to be right here at this level. So now the graph is going to come down and look like that. So that would be all the different orders that you do it in. And I might have done it in a different order on this on the answer key, but I still got the same answer. But in good practice, what you want to do is, again, do it in the same order that you do a calculation. Start with this one, apply a flip on the outside if there is one, and then add 3 in the end. That's the order that you should follow. So then here's all the different equations that I did building up to the final answer.